Okay, people. So now we are being recording another lesson at our seminary for history. Probably you see my face. I shall see my face only after the lesson. So if you know how I can see it right now, that would be really cool if you can help me. So we have some meeting chat in here. You can write to me. Sometimes I will check it out. So we'll see what's next. Oh, of course you can write in here. Okay, cool, kid. So, I believe you are all okay. So, you are living, you are negative so far. We are going to be tested. So, we believe that everything will be arranged. So, it will be useful and we can like slow it down. So, of course, as historians, we know some things are different than we know from media and propaganda and so on. This is something we are going to talk about today, the interwar period, maybe totalitarian regimes, and also we'll check your assignments from the previous year. So gradually, I will show you first like some internet resources or how to study this topic, because in the overview we have only some topics that are picked up, and maybe we can like go back and analyze these tasks in here that you have for the seminars. So I shall come back to this. Then when we move through these totalitarian regimes, I shall open your spring assignments. For the totalities, there were only two tasks, so it will be kind of a revision for the end of the lesson. So I believe everything is working fine, and it's okay. So if you have any questions, so please write down, and I think it will go on. With other classes, by the way, I'm still going on using the using Facebook stream, but I started uploading videos on YouTube only for you, so there's also possibility. If you prefer to have this kind of videos that I actually upload and shoot before that, so write to me whether you may like this idea. So this was like medieval Germany class for like third graders and so on. So we can also use this possibility. Okay, so if we are watching all, if we are more people to watch, there are some like six, seven, okay, nine people, 10 people. So I believe more are going to watch. Don't forget it. I'm going to give you absence too. Okay, so interwar period. Of course, you're going abroad. You're going to study in Czech Republic, some of you in Slovakia, and the world history, maybe in UK, maybe in America. Hard to say. If you realize that there were also assignments for the seminar about like this Young Plan and the Brian-Kellogg's Pact or the Locarno Conference. If we move on with other tasks, there is another task for you that you can also look at it. It is USA during the interwar period. Of course, there are some videos by John Green. I know that you are already fed up with this, but you can watch it at home. And there are some episodes that may be interesting, apart from American First World War, about women's suffrage, about Roaring Twenties. This is probably well-known term for you, and but we are not going to talk a lot about it. The Great Depression, and the New Deal by Franklin Delano Roosevelt. All these things may appear in the test. I mean, in the big test, but also in the test that we will have. If we come back or when we come back home, or maybe some online tests, and also some report. Good mark is yours. Okay, unfortunately, and the totalitarian regimes, also another videos and some good movies that in my opinion are really worth to watch. The Rise of Evil, about Hitler's rise to power, which is Canadian movie. Yeah, it's Canadian one, and it depicts some uh, some periods or events from early youth and early years of Adolf Hitler seizing to power. Doesn't seem very much like a trailer. So yeah, actually that was also how he was studying and so on, and all
Pán
the
profesor,
inspirations he got.
prepáčte, že
Pardon,
vás vyrušujem, len Karma
áno,
mi
Lily?
písala, že nie je v tejto skupine, tak sa nevie pripojiť na hodinu.
Ja, dobre, ďakujem, skúsime to hneď vyriešiť.
Dobre,
Skúsme
ďakujem.
to. Ona by tam inak mala byť, sa mi zdá. Takže ďakujem za note. A teraz ja by som to mal spraviť takto. Dúfam, že sa mi nepreruší stream. A dáme si maturanti, maturity, kde ste. Ak viete, decka, tak mi môžete poradiť. Tuto by mohlo byť ono. Áno, že manage team add member. Ďakujem. OK, takže máme Karmu. Karma Hasbach add. OK. Sorry, Karma, that you shall watch the video later, so you are in right now. So sorry, Karma, for this. Okay. So let's move on. So this is actually some interesting like parts from the story how he was establishing NSDAP. You can see as a Sturmabteilung and his speeches, and actually the guy among them, one was Jew that supported him at his early career. Also, there was a motivation how to have his typical mustache, Charlie Chaplin's mustache, and so on, and how he gradually seized power. So 2 episodes of this movie, really cool to watch. And the other movie that I gave you here is The Death of Stalin. This is actually the comedy shot by British. Actually, I would call it a comedian group. Okay, so this is trailer for this. This trailer for this. How Joseph Stalin dies, and of course there are a lot of like this fictional fictional scenes, but they actually explicitly express the feelings, the atmosphere of Beria and Khrushchev right in here, with excellent actors like What to Do and Molotov, Vyacheslav Molotov, when Stalin dies, and how they fight for the power in upcoming days. And it's really funny. And some actually the storyline is actually according to real situation from the memories of Stalin's daughter, but of course there is this fictional headings by authors. Okay, excellent actors in here. Okay, so this is only to recommend you. This stuff, so we can close it. What else? There are also this chart that you all did about comparing these differences and similarities among socialism, communism, fascism, and Nazism, which is actually very, how to say, not very correct, not very correct simplification of this period, because there are many variations of this. So. Let's start with this. So, if you want to study only totalities, maybe it may be enough to watch this and to read my notes. Also, read some extra books. But if you want to study it with also these conferences and pacts and so on, so probably it's very easy just to Google it. So, what I did Google, what the major keywords were major events of post-war period, and picking up, of course, those who can be useful. So brief look when you open it, like from Spark Notes, which is very simple, very brief. So you got a kind of a timeline in here with Treaty of Versailles signed, and you got November meeting of League of Nations and so on, Washington Conference in November 21 to 22. And already in October 22, Benito Mussolini is in power in Italy. 23, we got the beer hall putsch, okay, of Adolf Hitler and Ludendorff. Vladimir Lenin dies the next year, so it's actually a nice overview. Of course, sometimes it's not so important unless you're going to study to France with Cartel de Gauche wins the French election, and later on there will be Popular Bloc, Ludovic Front, and so on. Okay, for example, the Dave's plan is among the situation that I wanted to give you the things that how the Treaty of Versailles was being changed, especially concerning reparations, because especially for Americans, especially for the British, it was obvious that Germany was not able to pay it back, and this afterward crisis, first crisis, caused that it was that it may cause radicalization. That's why Locarno Pact, which was actually one of the motivators for this, was our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Edvard Beneš, who tried to set like some kind of international international cooperation, but later Czechoslovakia denied some of these parts, and they were not happy about this. Other countries were not very resistant to what was happening with this radicalization. Just Józef Pilsudski became, like as they call it, virtual dictator in Poland, and actually ruling in Poland until his death in 1935. Okay, some things from England. Of course, Spanish monarchy overthrown. That is 1931. Gyula Gombos comes to power in Hungary, but we know that Gyula Gombos was only prime minister of Miklos Horthy, who was the actual ruler in Hungary, and moving to the right, far right stuff. Finally, nation disarmament conferences held, but they were not accepted at all in Geneva, and some of these acts were added in which they talked about the prisoners of war, about treatment of those prisoners, about not using, for example, chemical weapons, and so on. Okay, Communist Party members are expelled by Stalin. How many? 1.14 million. Okay, there are many purges of Stalin's happening in here, but world was not, how to say, world was not very much to very likely to analyze it, to see it. Okay, so when we move on, there are other things in here. There are other things to see. So, for example, German Reichstag passes enabling act gives power to Hitler. Lone blooms this Popular Front in France, and so on. Spanish nationalists begin the Spanish Civil War with Mola Francisco Franco, and so on. And until Munich Pact is signed up. So you can see only when you read this, you have just idea what was happening. You got a vocabulary. If you want to study it like in more precise way, more, even including pictures, the other solves very quickly to read, of course, Wikipedia. Guys from those period, Mussolini, Hitler, the Emperor Hirohito, Chiang Kai-shek, the president of China, Joseph Stalin, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the president of the 1930s and 40s, Neville Chamberlain, Daladier, main characters or personalities of the Munich Conference and Munich Pact. And again, from the German Revolution, armistice, and so on. Even Spartak is uprising, among the first of communist uprisings in Germany. For example, even Battle of George Square in Glasgow. Polish-Soviet War begins. Comintern establishing of the Third International, Socialist International, this is Comintern. And there are actually many other things, Hungarian Soviet Republic, Turkish War, independence. So you see there are many things that the previous source didn't mention. So it's very good to realize it and to see it. Okay, what else? D'Annunzio was one of the fascist leaders who finally motivated for Benito Mussolini to seize power in Italy. Okay, also Free City of Danzig, League of Nations, the Kapp Putsch. Actually, this is important thing because just like Spartak is uprising, Germany is one of many rebellions in Germany. Wolfgang Kapp tried to seize power using the general using like this Junkers tradition and their money and so on, and they believed to pull down the democratic government, but this was actually crushed during the general strike, and you see that there were actually two radical sides trying to seize the power, but that was case of this after war economical crisis, starvation, and hunger strikes and so on. Okay, Triano Severe, Zheligovsky, okay, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Vice President of USA, Bloody Christmas in Italy, and so on. So when you just scroll it down, there are many more events, but it's good to read it. I can really recommend you because many things were happening all around the world, like Shanghai Massacre in 1927, perpetrated by the Kuomintang, and so on. So there are many things, Iraq seizing independence, like many things happening in here, but sometimes there are too much of it. If you want to study for your final exam and to prepare for your university studies for exams or interviews to be accepted in university, it's good to pick up some main events. And this is another good Wikipedia page about interwar period generally, but there are many, of course, and including maps. You got this like turmoil in Europe and very easy, very brief description, international relations concerning League of Nations, but also Spanish Civil War, Washington Naval Conference, some treaties around Roaring Twenties, and this is the thing that we call the Jazz Age, and concerning cultural stuff, and that was influenced by the leftists and from Mexico to Europe and further on to China. So it's really influential and changing. The Great Depression, another thing for those who are going to study economy, there are many people for you, and those who don't. Also, all these things changing things coming after the war are caused by economy and how economy was changed because of this. The Great Depression was another side effect of the war, but mainly of the way how the stock market was working and how it was caused by this Black Friday 1929, when the stock in New York fell because of the speculation funds of Brazilian coffee, and actually it caused like terrible uh, economical crisis, especially in industrial countries like Germany or Czechoslovakia, and further on results with unemployment and radicalization. Okay, fascism not only in Italy or Hungary, but further on in other countries, and of course Spanish Civil War that I shall mention, I believe today too. Despite we are running out of time very quickly, so they should be really brief. British Empire, maybe. This would be also good to read because there are many things concerning India and Punjab. You see already Mohammed Gandhi coming to the scene. Tried to guess who Indiana Jones met. Okay, yeah, he met him too. But also Faisal again, Land Balfour Declaration. This is this thing about the mandate of giving Syria and Iraq to Britain and France and insurgencies, because already in 1930s, Jews start to abandon Europe. They're either banished from Nazi Germany or they just move as a part of so-called Beitar movement. That was nationalistic movement of Jewish uh, organizations called Zionism. They did believe they should go back to Palestine to claim Israel and banish other ethnic groups from there. So it was interesting that before Holocaust even happened, so many Jews were coming to Palestine, starting with some insurgencies in Israel, and that was also the moment when uh, the terrorist organization called Irgun was created in Palestine. Started with this terrorist warfare in there. Okay, French Empire also in here. German Weimar Republic. This also good to read it, or maybe to read this Eric Maria Remarque, the three friends of three comrades. Nazi era too, anti-Comintern Pact, and many things that I'm going to tell you soon. Italy, the same thing, how they tried, yeah, and their ambitions. This is actually cool photo how Mussolini believed to conquer all these lands of former Roman Empire, and what can be Roman for them, former Italian, including colonies. They had Libya and Eritrea, but they invaded Ethiopia, which was independent at the time. Okay, what else we have? Balkans, Japanese dominant in East Asia with the attack invasion to Manchuria and China. Okay, Latin America, if you're interested, sports. That's gonna be thing interesting, but probably you're not going to attend because we have this competition in Heb, and very often there are these Olympic games and sportsmen, and also at that time not so much, but since 1936 Olympic Games in Berlin that Hitler firstly denied was had been denying, so then he realized that it can be really a great propaganda opportunity for them to promote Nazism. So also stories of Jesse Owens winning a couple of disciplines there are really interesting. Okay, the last site I want to show you about events of the interwar period is another like nice and easy timeline with the Treaty of Versailles, League of Nations, also with the emblem, Beer Hall Putsch, despite this picture from the later on period of the Sturmabteilung marching in here. And but here you got this Davis Plan, Locarno Pact, so everything I want to show you, including even this nice Venn diagram, or maybe just a diagram. Uh, Brian Kellogg's Pact, for example, or stock market crash in USA, Black Tuesday, not Friday. Okay, so I was I was mistaken all the time. Okay, but the other things that we have this invasion of Ethiopia, but even Germany occupying Rhineland and Ruhrland and Saarland, creation of the Axis alliance around Berlin, later Rome, Berlin, Tokyo, anti-Comintern pact together with Germany and Japan against Soviet Union. So probably it was not only the thing that Soviets were allies of Germany. It was only short period, but all these 1930s they had been preparing to clash to challenge Bolshevism. Okay, Anschluss in Austria, because I think there was somewhere also the guy who was the prime minister of Austria, but I already closed it. And of course, Munich Agreement or Munich Pact, we call it the Munich Dictate, and it's very nice also to talk about terminology, how it is being different. Okay, Germany occupying Czechoslovakia finally in March 1939, and Slovakia became the puppet state of that. But 23rd of August non-aggression pact, this Molotov-Ribbentrop pact, that's the word we know, 7 September, Germany invading Poland. Okay, so let's have a look. Let's have a look if you have some questions in here. Probably not. And let's go just through the notes, just short revision, brief revision. So if you remember from the spring, fourth class lessons, we had this interwar period of the rise of socialism. I also recommend to Karma to watch Slovak video that that I uploaded, and you are going to watch on Monday, because we will have here in Drenova there will be electricity blackout. So I already shot a lesson for you, and you are supposed to watch it. During that moment, I shall upload it using mobile phone. I believe the internet connection will be okay, at least. Okay, so what was the thing? Just for revision, socialism was an ideology established by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels in mid-19th century. It evolved in Marxism as the economy and economical and historical and especially political ideology and philosophical concept that made especially social democratic leftist or labor parties to enter socialistic internationals. It also influenced after his death, when Vladimir Lenin, the leader of radical Marxists called Bolsheviks or communists, edited with many of his ideas about violent, bloody revolution. Actually, the first revolution came even before Marx's communists appeared. It was in 1905, with after the lost Japanese Russian war, which Russia got into the revolution with the mutiny on the battleship Potemkin, and Tsar Nicholas II was forced to form State Duma, which was the parliament of Russia. At the time, voting right was very limited, so it represented only 4% of population, which was conservative, nationalistic, royalist, many other style groups. But these guys, like social democrats, were not happy about this. So gradually, there still new and new parties were being created. Some of them were allowed to enter State Duma, and among them, two socialist parties were created from these SRs, which were Mensheviks and Bolsheviks. Mensheviks were not so radical. They were actually moderate social democrats or socialists, and Bolsheviks were those of communists. We know that how the World War ended up, what it caused in Russia, that was famine, desertions, and the first revolution at this moment still without participation of Bolsheviks and Mensheviks, only in small participation, small part. This first revolution, or February Revolution, tried to be more democratic, and Prime Minister who was appointed for the temporary government, Alexander Kerensky, had goals to bring free elections and peace, which he failed because new constitution was not accepted because of these disagreements and hostility in the government itself, and peace was not signed up because the Entente powers persuaded him not to sign it up. That's why this content caused another rebellions in the summer. That was this first uprising of Bolsheviks led by Lev Trotsky, and it failed. And it was obvious they needed Lenin to be brought to Russia from exile from Switzerland. Uh, the other rebellions of nationalists or Cossacks or anarchist army of Makhno were actually oppressed, but some of these armies were operating by themselves and still fighting on. So this revolution was already kind of a small civil war among the like each other. Germany used the situation and they helped Vladimir Lenin to come back from exile and cross Finland. He helped to organize Bolsheviks in their second putsch or second attempt that turned out to be real revolution. The Bolsheviks called Great October Revolution, but we call it the Bolshevik or Russian Bolshevik Revolution in here. Oh, the difference is because, of course, Russians counted in Julian calendar, but it happened in November. So the point is that Bolsheviks started up this coup d'etat from the battleship Aurora, and in St. Petersburg, army and navy men and workers who were armed attacked the Winter Palace, which was not protected at all. Actually, it was in protecting this Winter Palace, but they all surrendered. And also, the pictures you see are from the movie by Eisenstein, Soviet director, Russian director, and they established the rule of communism. That we know that what happened that they organized the Red Army, fought the Belguardians or White Guards. This war continued until 1922. And during which Lenin also fulfilled some promises. Firstly, he sent Lev Trotsky to sign the Peace of Brest-Litovsk on the 3rd March 1918 with Germany, which was followed by invasion of Germans to Ukraine and Belarus and occupation. Until the end of the war, these lands, this part were occupied by Germans. But armistice led Germans to withdraw with those lands and allowed even these countries in Eastern Europe to be independent for a while. Why? Because Lenin also gave independence to other nations for a while with his so-called decree about self-determination of nations. So how the war ended went on in Soviet Russia, as we call it, especially in the south, there were still armies fighting the Bolsheviks. These White Guards were now being commanded by Admiral Kolchak, and Makhno's army was being defeated in the Caucasians. Actually, if you think that they were like cool anarchists and so on, punks, so these guys fighting everybody were great anti-Semites. So when they entered some villages or towns with Jewish population, they just annihilated them. So it was really bad. And also there was kinds of white terror. So anybody who proved like some anti-nationalistic or anti-monarchist opinions, so they were being persecuted, killed too. So Czechoslovak legions were tried to intervene in the Baltic lands, but the independence of Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania caused that they represented us, the British and French, the Entente troops, to withdraw from their lands, not to provoke Russians to come back and occupy them again. So the Entente withdrew. Japan and America still keep holding the Siberian, Vladivostok territories in Far East. So Czechoslovakia was the only army that was capable to keep some power. And as you know, this famous story of their transport of an occupation of railway, Trans-Siberian Railway, and they great and suffering journey across the Siberia, on which they gave Admiral Kolchak, but they also stole part of the treasury of Russian Tsars. And Russian Tsar, he was murdered with all his family by Bolsheviks. So the last intervention was from Poland, they believed that they can crush this Bolshevik rebellion, but the Red Army was so strong at that time that their counterattack caused almost the fall of Poland. And the result was that Poland and Soviet Russia, now already Soviet Union, because they occupy also Ukraine, Belarus, Caucasian republics, and they changed name to Union of Soviet Socialistic Republics. And the borders between Poland and Soviet Union just in the middle of Belarus and Ukraine. So these are also reasons why today Belarus has this different thing. So what was the thing? Lenin started with building socialism, but with terror, and especially when Joseph Stalin, after the Lenin's death, became the chairman of Communist Party, they're using all these things. And what were the features you were to analyze? I just remind you a couple of things. Totalitarian government must be in the way that political party is only one, and the leaders of them created some committee that is ruling without any vetoing, any balance of the power, any opposition. Usually there is one dictator, chairman of the party in case of communist countries, who is actually elected or chosen by Politburo. But when you watch this Death of Stalin, you shall realize that probably it was kind of like behind the scene war and assassinations and so on. The other things that they start to organize in economy was the nationalization of private companies, especially of factories, that all these production and income was later reinvested in other investments within communist countries. So that also created kind of a fictional image of the Soviet Union as successful country in 1930s. The other was collectivization. Collectivization of land parcels was in order to create collective farms, what we call društva. In Russian, it was called kolkhoz, and they were these collective farms, but people were forced to enter these collective farms even in violent way. Those for example, were refusing, so they were sent to labor camps in Siberia. They concern on industrialization, especially building heavy industry, because having combines and big steel works, it allows you to build also trains and airplanes and cars and tanks, and to spread revolution internationally, because that was something that Lenin added, and actually it was in terms of Marx theory that this revolution must be widespread all around the world. It can be in danger all the time. Often in order they denied any option, and that was this control that now control of the Communist Party of Soviet Union. Of course, those who resisted, so they were persecuted, they were called the enemies of the state. For example, rich farmers were called gulags. Middle class that was educated and tried to reveal that it may be dangerous, so they started to be called in French word bourgeois, and it got negative connotation. These guys were sent to these gulags, it should be written actually in capital letters, which means abbreviation for the management of these labor and re-educational camps. Of course, Stalin very quickly started with purges even against communism, so Lev Trotsky had to emigrate to exile. In 1943, during the Second World War, he was found by Stalin's assassins and killed. And in this way, of course, Stalin's need to build up the image, the picture of himself and of the communism, socialism in very bright future. So that was all, how to say, artistic depiction. I think that some of you also got this topic, so I'm really looking forward to depictions. What if the monster, yeah, it was welcomed by pioneers and workers and even other ethnic groups of Soviet Union, because now they're over nationalism. It's not Russian. It's already so with Red Star, Hammer, and Sickle as the of the proletariat. As of course now this founder were erased his opponents in the pictures like this one. So Photoshop had existed before Photoshop, that if he sent somebody to death, so he was the other photos were being like blurred, erased. Okay, this nice example of the art of communism, how the tractor of socialism and collectivization is pulling down the kulaks and church. Of course, they were anti-clerical and persecution. This is the map of gulags, of the main labor camps all over the Siberia, and the picture maybe from Czechoslovakia. It's highly possible. Also, I was member of pioneers organization. Even as a youth, as a children, you had to be organized under the rule of these. But we'll talk about this also with Czechoslovakia after the Second World War. So very quickly, I will look if you have some questions or not. Obviously not. Okay, so what else? What else? Let's move on very quickly to fascist Italy that you all know. So just to revise it, uh, Italy was not satisfied with the acquisition after the First World War. They demanded all, and you saw the map of Benito Mussolini dreams. He was a former socialist, but he had very opinions too. That's why he was expelled from Socialist Party of Italy, and he very quickly turned into radical nationalism, and he organized the so-called National Fascist Party. His motivation, or the symbol, were fasces from Roman Republic, symbol of lictors, who symbolized that symbolized the power of the consuls, and possibility not only to beat the criminals but also to execute them. So it kind of symbolized law and order and symbol of republic. Despite Italy was still a kingdom, and how he got to power was that he started to claim about against everybody that many people disliked at the time, especially against socialists who tried to seize power in Italy, against nationalization of factories, in which he seized support of these factory owners. Against socialists, he seized support of clericals and of veterans, for example, enemies just like France or Kingdom of SHS, so Yugoslavia. So they were again against veterans, against parliamentary democracy. So many people didn't believe that it is cool and it can bring only like communists to the power, but also against free elections. That instead of this, he proposed to have so-called a state parliament, Stavovsky parliament, Stavovsky Stat. In this way, you know it from the previous year, was the thing that the one party is leading, one leader, Duce, but he appoints MPs to the parliament himself, and they should represent, let's say, veterans, capitalists like businessmen, teachers, students, workers, laborers, labor unions, and so on. But all of them had to be members of fascist party and had to be appointed by himself. If he was not satisfied with some of these MPs, so they couldn't be like replaced by somebody very well. That was in Slovak fascist state in the constitution of 1939 of June, and later on repeated by Marian Kotleba, first political organization, Slovenská pospolitosť. So also the Wolf organization, similar to Pioneers organization of communism, but much more military, I can tell you, and that was also kind of model organization for Hitler Jugend. Okay, what did he call for? He called for rising of military power of Italy because they were still pretty weak, restoration of Roman Empire, so the map, but also the dominance of white men. There was racism, but they counted Jews among them, so that is very big difference. There are famous some stories how Italian Navy helped these Beitar Jews sailing to Palestine and so on. Okay, what else? Again, all organization, public life, law and order had to be according to Duce and his fascist party. So it was similar with communism and so on. Also, the fascists gave name to the combat militia with wearing black shirts, as you can see in this picture, and they called themselves Fasces Combattimento Rivoluzionario, Forze Rivoluzionarie di Combattimento. This means revolutionary bounds of the combat of the military. He managed to organize in such large numbers that in Torino, I think, in 1922, he proclaimed one of his speeches that they should march to Rome just like Gaius Julius Caesar across the Rubicon and change the government, change the constitution. This demonstration of power turned out a real march of thousands of people who gathered in numbers of like 40,000 in front of Vittorio Emanuele II in Rome, and the government was so scared that they resigned, and the king, Vittorio Emanuele III, decided to listen to Benito Mussolini despite not attending any elections, not having any votes, and he gave him power. He gave him prime minister function, and he immediately named ministers. And when you have Minister of Inner Affairs, immediately you can start with persecution of your opponents. And he did similar things that Nazism did. Okay, other things, you know, the Germany, how they lived after the First World War with Weimar Republic, and how they were exhausted from war, how they had to pay reparations, and economical crisis caused hyperinflation, devaluation of mark, of Deutsche Mark, unemployment, hunger, and radicalization. There were these coups d'etats of Bolsheviks, this Spartakism uprising, Bavarian Soviet Republic, and even fascists attempt fifth time Adolf Hitler coming to the scene with his beer hall putsch. They were oppressed, and even Weimar Republic stabilized for a while. But Hitler, in prison, while staying in prison for a few years, he wrote Mein Kampf. That was a book in which he described his opinions. It's actually pretty, how to say, confusing, not very systematic, and I would say crazy. When you read it, you realize that this guy was probably not okay in his mind. And in the last pages, he proposed. Actually, most of the book is about refusing the Versailles Treaty, hate towards France, and Jews are responsible for all the evil. And in the last few pages, he mentioned that there should be like a new war, and that should bring this white race that he called Aryan race to the scene, and they should overrule and bring this Lebensraum for white people, for German race, and he denied the existence, or he called for the killing the Jews, Slavs, and also Gypsies, Romani people. This book was not so popular when he was released from the prison, but it started to be popular, forced, maybe forcedly popular in 1930s when he seized power, and again during the Second World War. So, but who read this book was Tomáš Garik Masaryk, who immediately bought a column in all the newspapers in Czechoslovakia, where he warned other people from accepting this ideology. It can be very dangerous not only for Czechoslovakia, but actually for all Europe and for all the world. Then he started up with this Rise of Evil movie. When you watch it, you'll see how he established a took over old party that he gave new name, NSDAP, which means National Socialist German Labor Party. And he actually, when he put together all the names that could be popular for people of the 1920s, and if you had this today, probably there could be even more names for that. But he also, because he had the support of Freikorps that helped him during the beer hall putsch, and inspired by fascists, Fasces Revoluzionare de Combattimento, they start to establish similar militia that was Sturmabteilung at the beginning. You can recognize them with typical fascist uniforms, but wearing this, like, what is this, desert sand color, and these kind of caps. They were really radical guys. But later on, SS, Schutzstaffel, wearing these black uniforms, the other black uniforms, and fighting each other, and also SD, that was like counterintelligence service of Germany, but also persecuting their enemies inside the state. As a symbol, he picked up swastika that he believed was an ancient Aryan symbol used by ancient Greeks, and he found only one very different swastika, that is so-called Wewelsburg black sun, that neo-Nazi skinheads are wearing on tattoo on their arms today. And he promoted it from a Hinduist symbol, reversed it and mirror shaped, and started to use it. So this symbol got brand new usage, despite it was used, for example, in Finland or in Latvia. But probably Hitler didn't want to show up that he's a Hinduist from Finland. So in this way, this thing was given brand new meaning. Okay, the Night of the Long Knives was among the things that happened when he seized power in 1934. His former friend Ernst Röhm, by the way, he was homosexual, he was gay, he was leader of Sturmabteilung. So Hitler was not happy that his friend is opposing him. So he decided that during the one night, the night of the Long Knives, the SS men attacked, killed, or forced SA men to surrender, or they were killed, and Ernst Röhm was murdered in the bed. So the SS men just stormed his flat and killed him in the bed with his lover, actually, with another man. And they later explained that he deserved this like murder, that because he was committing sodomy, that is homosexuality. Okay, very quickly, there was this ideology of National Socialism, how's he called it, simply Nazism, denial of versatility, supremacy of white Germany, grace, he called it Aryan, he believed that it's Indo-European, but refusing, for example, Slavic or like darker skinned guys. There was very strong anti-Semitism, also racism against Gypsies and against Slavs. Mein Kampf was translated in Slovak or in Croatian, and here in Slovakia it was issued without the last pages. So when I asked some young skinheads to show me the pages about Slavic people, they said there are none. So I showed them another original version when there was written that how we should be like erased from the earth, and we should be slaves because this is like also a tradition of Slavic people to be slaves. Then he called also for the conquest of these eastern lands, Drag nach Osten from Middle Ages, to claim Lebensraum, the living space for them. So this is the thing that also everything had to be subdued to Führer. That was just like Nietzsche, this Führer and his party. Also, he called for nationalization of factories, in which case he moves closely to communism and socialism, but only in small part. So most to the left, but absolutely still they are in this quarter of radical authoritarian right. Also, all labor should be organized to rebuild the power of Germany, the education, raising up kids for the army, and so on. So in the end, yeah, in a couple of minutes, we'll compare these goals of fascism, Nazism, and communism. At the beginning, they were a very small party, and just like my friends were telling me, Miron, just don't be angry about Kotleba. He's like ridiculous. Their party got like 3%, and you know what happened? Because the Great Depression came and unemployment, radicalization of people caused that NSDAP seized a lot of votes, new votes, but especially took over votes by communists or social democrats. And this is what also Adolf Hitler said, that if you, that they should concern, the Nazis should concern and on working class, not on the like teachers, intelligence, bourgeoisie, because these guys they share. I mean, the workers they share the same hate towards the system, the democracy, and capital. So with using good nationally, like proper nationalistic education and propaganda from a communist, there can be excellent Nazi. And today, not only today, very often it happened. Despite communists were refusing that, but especially today, you can see that there is kind of a union of communists, you know, very radical left with radical right, and among them also some alternative style hippies, you know, that these all guys share hate against system, and you see these days wearing masks and refusing this test, refusing testing is similar what Adolf Hitler. They also were talking similar things about conspiracies, and they believe that Aryan ration was created in Shangri-La in the Himalayas, and there is some island Tula hidden, and they shall reveal those seize the world again. There would be new technological futuristic society. This is something that came from fascism, by the way. Okay, what else? Von Hindenburg didn't like Nazi at all, but he appointed Hitler chancellor when they won the second elections. But soon Hitler took over the Bundestag, and when Hindenburg died, he didn't organize new elections for president in the Bundestag, that is the name of German Weimar parliament, but he appointed himself to take over the presidential duties, and thus he created so-called the Third Reich, in which he abolished the republic, proclaimed this kind of empire. We all call it Reich, and also he renamed Bundestag to Reichstag. In few years, he rebuilt German army called Wehrmacht, and their air force Luftwaffe took all organizations, this youth organization called Hitlerjugend, Hitlerová mládež, čiže ak sa budete čudovať, prečo Hlinková mládež a prečo ľudová mládež, Kotlebovcov, Miňo Mazurek, tak toto sú zjavné veci. Okay, what else? He built the concentration camps first in Germany for the opposition. At the beginning, journalists were the first people who were killed, assassinated, or sent to death camps. Communists, socialists, anarchists, of course, because they were the main opposition at the beginning. Later on, even liberals, Democrats, even Catholics, Catholic priests, because they're actually not very, how to say, clerical, despite they had Gott mit uns, God is with us on the belts of Wehrmacht, but also they were being persecuted. Jews, of course, that's the main thing. and any enemies of Nazis. Gradually gave power to main Nazi politicians. This was some similar to the Russian Soviet Politburo, that Hitler had his like friends around. Ernst Röhm, we can already cross him off, but for example, Joseph Goebbels, Hermann Goering, for example. So it should be, he should, you should actually study that to realize who is who. Okay, SS seized power and became on the level more than police, and even he established new Polizei, which was like secret police, state police, which was kind of like intelligence service and to persecute the enemies. And actually today, just today, I'm sorry, I have to show you this SS and Gestapo staff. Gestapo staff were wearing clothes that I have to show you, because you know, if you don't know that Mr. Kotleba is was given maybe that would be the one. No, I can't see that. Okay, but maybe I can find it somewhere in here. He got, sorry for that. Yeah. That Marian Kotleba was wearing this like 2005 and 6. He was wearing the same Gestapo and SS trench coat, leather trench coat. Just this is Heinrich Himmler himself, and you can still buy it over the Amazon for this. Okay, sorry for my personal intrusion into the lesson. When I'm here, I check up if you have some questions. Seká to ešte niekoho, či mám problém s tým videom? Viacerým. Dobre, decka, bude to nahraté, takže pozrieť. A ak budeme mať problémy, možno aj slabý signál, bude tu v Štiavnici, Wi-Fi signál, tak ja vám budem tie videá nahrávať na YouTube dopredu. Dobre? So we'll come back to this shortly. So we got 9 minutes. So let's have a look what we finished, what we forgot to mention. Okay, yeah, rise of fascism and aggressions before World War II. You know that they were the result of this First World War was that Bolshevik Revolution, and this will change border states and regimes. And of course, apart from crisis in values, there were two economic crises. This was after war and Great Depression. All of these radicalization caused of nationalistic and authoritarian regimes all around the Euro. When in late 1930s there was a couple of democratic states, United Kingdom, France, Czechoslovakia, maybe Switzerland, Denmark, Netherlands, Norway, and that is all actually that I can remember. Maybe these small, like tiny states. And as I said, Italy and Germany signed up this Axis alliance called the Rome-Berlin Axis, later joined by Japan and called Anti-Comintern Alliance, or Pact against Cominterna. Later we called them the Axis powers, and the result was that Japan invaded Korea, China twice. Italians invaded Ethiopia, and in this pact, you see how they celebrating like their union of imperialistic countries trying to change the results of World War I. And this is Haile Selassie, Ethiopian emperor, giving speech in Geneva in the League of Nations, which later this became as a manifesto for so-called Rastafarian movement, a political movement for the liberation of black people. Okay, and gradually what else is in here? So interwar period, gradual steps of Nazi themselves. So Germany abandoning League of Nations. Later on, Germany just reads this map. Try to read this map. Later on, they reoccupied Rhineland, Ruhr, Saarland, without any protest from France. At the same time, they supported Francisco Franco's fascists in Spanish Civil War. In March 1938, after long preparations and propaganda manipulations of elections in Austria, when Austrian Nazis seized power, so Adolfo Schuschnigg, the prime minister of Austria, gave power to Germany and invited them to enter Austria, which Anschluss, which means union of Germany and Austria, came to be through, and especially Czech lands of Czechoslovakia were being surrounded completely. That was another target, was Czechoslovakia, of course, which caused that finally Sudetenlands were given to Germany. That was accepted at Munich conference by UK and France, as you see Neville Chamberlain waving with this Munich Pact agreement without participation by Edward Beneš. When the pressure, and they were not, and France and Britain were not willing to fight for them, despite mobilization of Czechoslovak army with 1.5 million people. The Germans had only 2 or 3 million, 3 million soldiers in their army at that time. So probably Czechoslovak could have caused some serious damage. Of course, they couldn't stand a chance against Germany, but that was possibility. But what happened? Month later, there was so-called Vienna Award, in which only Italy and Germany, their ministers of foreign affairs, decided that Slovakia, Slovak autonomy, part of Czechoslovakia, should give southern lands to Hungary. The same Slovakia became autonomous and used Subcarpathian Rus. You know that Slovaks proclaimed autonomy with their fascist political party, and Germany supported them to proclaim independence, which came through in March 1939, where Slovak fascist leaders were offered by a Nazi to proclaim independence under their protection. First, Karol Sidor refused, but then Josef Tiso agreed, and the parliament accepted it without any cheer. Slovakia became first puppet state of Nazi Germany, which will be followed by Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, Croatia, Manchuria, Finland, and some others, even parts of Ukraine with SS Galician members in it. Okay, what else? There was also second Vienna Award because Hungary was given even part of Romania, but that would come a year later. And finally, what else? At the same time when Slovakia proclaimed independence, Bohemia and Moravia were being occupied as the country that was for the longest time, for the longest period occupied by Nazi Germany, suffered the most. And that's why it's not surprised that Czechs were not capable of any serious resistance in here. Okay, what else? Analyzing the pictures. So this is popularity of votes and votes of NSDAP, and you can compare them to especially Social Democratic Party that losing on National People's Party. So you can see where even Marian Kotleba tried to seize votes from the leftist sides, but also from people who were Christians, believers, just not happy, or conservatives. So this was this part. Okay, on the other side, actually, communists sees rose on the votes because they're also becoming radical and just like opposition. Imagine that you got 19% of votes in Communist Party and like 33% for Nazis. So it depended on the others. Okay, so concentration camps, of course, you know this Mr. Landmesser from famous picture. He was German himself, and actually at the beginning he was supportive of Nazi, but he married to a Jewish woman, and when he realized that she would be oppressed, and actually she died in concentration camp, so refused to hell, and actually also died during the war. Pictures from after the Second World War from the Oswiecim. And next lesson, we will go on with Spanish Civil War, and we will just go through Second World War. I don't know how. I have to think about the possibility. And of course, in the notes, I just picked up Sashka and Lily's comparison. So this is interesting to do. So let's have a look at it again, please, and organize it from youth political organization, central economy. I actually gave the socialism in more moderate form from 1970s Czechoslovakia, then to Stalinist regime, and also Mussolini's fascism in the 1930s to Nazism in 1942, because it was very different, like Hitler's Nazism 30, like 3 and 42, that's definitely. So one party allowed work camps or labor camps, adored leaders, yes, so dictator, nationalistic ideas. Actually, yeah, even so, well, this is hard to say, nationalistic ideas in this 1970s communism or socialism, because they tried to be very internationals, supporting black African resistance, you know, the colonialism, Latin American struggle, you know, against America and so on. So they're pretty international and tried to came over. Also, Hungarians had no problems at that time. Racist ideas, definitely. Obsession with symbols. I have to tell you that Czechoslovakia was obsessed with their symbol, coat of arms, with full side. Discreditation of enemies, definitely for all of them. Spreading the thoughts over the more decline. I have to check it out. What does it mean? Sashkas. Pursuit of expansion. Yeah, definitely. Militia. Yeah, we all had Lidové milice in Czechoslovakia. Anti-Semitism, but in Soviet communist Stalinist, definitely it shall come, this anti-Semitism, when state of Israel would come. So at the end of Stalinism, it would come later. Freedom of speech, definitely nowhere. Secret police, definitely everywhere. Pro-human rights, definitely. Marxism, excellent. I would say that that would be here. So also when I opened, I think Lily's, that would be very, very similar. So what she didn't mention, censorship, it's here. Freedom of speech, propaganda, compulsory military service. This is interesting compared to you. One-party government, aggressive foreign policy. I do agree. Treaty with Japan, excellent. Okay, nice. And populism, fine. Actually, there was strong populism in socialism, communism too, because they were at least supporting sport and culture. They believe that is their good one. So giving flats is part of it, but interior stuff. Okay, we run out of time, guys. So I'm sorry for any technical troubles. Takže ja to pozriem ešte aj, že či to sekalo. Samozrejme, toto video potom natiahnem, tak dúfam, že bude sa dať. V moral decline. Aha, ďakujem, v pohode, Saška, dobre, super. Takže pozrite si to videjko, prosím, ešte neskôr, ak to sekalo. A dám vám takú myšlienku, lebo teda v pondelok budete celá skupina, aj Ačkari pozerať cez YouTube video, ktoré vám zavesím na našu, aj sem, ale ja vám ho zavesím aj na dejepisy Decameronu 2, takže to si prosím pozrite tiež. A čo ďalej? No a poviete mi po tom videu, že či sa vám to pozdáva, či to vyhovuje, lebo tam budete vidieť aj moju tvár a nebudete môcť nereagovať, ale však vidím, že aj tak nereagujete, ale môžete písať nejaké zadania a možno to bude také, že more accessible, že sa k tomu ľahšie dostanete. Dobre, to je všetko. Ak máte otázky, pýtajte sa prosím a ako som vám napísal na domácu úlohu, prejdite si teda stránky videa k tomu Interwar period, ktoré som vám ukazoval. Prezentácie mi pošlete v ďalších, čo ste v poradí. Kristinka Fanturová a Natálka Javorková, dobre? Takže nezabudnite, že takto o týždeň mi máte dať vašu prvú verziu. Kika Cabanová a Paťa, ja vám odpíšem možno ešte dnes, ak mi teda aj Paťa pošle vypracovanie. No a ako to má vyzerať. Čiže už dnes by napríklad aj Karma a Dano mali mať spravené, ale ja som trošku termín posunul, lebo som bol zahltený štvrtákmi, tak oni potom dostanú už normálne známku za tú ich prezentáciu o 4 osobnostiach. Dobre? Nezabudnite na seminárky a nezabudnite na to, že v podstate my budeme určite mať test aj skúšanie. Dobre? Takže to je všetko. That's all from me, guys. So thanks a lot, and I'm ending recording. Don't forget to leave the conversation. Okay, bye, guys. So bye. Have a nice day and have a nice weekend. Stay negative.
Dovidenia.